People like stories, but what happens when the story outlives the man, and the man outlives the story? There's a moment in the death of Robin Hood where Robin screams not because he's in pain, but because he isn't, because he wants to die, and someone saved him. And in that scream, you can hear it, the sound of a legend breaking under the weight of the truth. If you caught my non-spoiler review of the death of Robin Hood, you know I gave it a 4 out of 5. A film that kept nagging at me, that kept me replaying it in my head. But that review had a boundary. I told you what the film was doing, its themes, its tone, its craft, without telling you what happens. Now it's time to take that boundary down. So spoiler warning, if you haven't seen The Death of Robin Hood and want to go in fresh, stop here. Go watch it. Really, go watch it. Then come back. I will still be here. Still with me? Good, because this isn't the Robin Hood you grew up with. This isn't Errol Flynn or Kevin Costner or even a Russell Crowe's grizzled warrior. This is a Robin Hood who kills pregnant women, who stabs a drifter girl in the neck and drags her body to a graveyard with 13 other graves, who spends the entire film running from the truth of what he's become. And yet, this is also a Robin Hood whose only redemption comes in the form of a lie. A story he tells a little girl because she needs to believe in something good. Because the truth is too heavy for any of us to carry. So let's dig in. Why does this movie work? Because it's not just about Robin Hood. It's about us. The stories we tell ourselves to survive, the legends we cling to when the world feels too dark. And it's about the cost of being human. The violence, the guilt, and the moments of grace of somehow make it all worth it. Quick mention, time codes are in the description in case you want to bounce around. I mentioned this when I posted my non-spoiler review, but I wanted to mention it again. I want to thank everyone for helping us hit a 1,000 subscriber mark. It's a big milestone for a channel like this, so once again, thank you for watching. We cover the film genres of sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, pop culture, and all things geek, where every frame tells a story. I'm Rob, and this is A Constantly Racing Mind. Also, by the way, there are no end credit scenes. The post-credit scene is your friend turning to you saying, "Wait, that's it?" Okay, spoilers start now. Set in the cold, harsh Irish countryside, an aging, cynical, and battered Robin Hood, Hugh Jackman, lives as a recluse. A starving young drifter girl, dressed as a boy to avoid drawing attention, approaches his fire for food. She gushes about the legendary hero Robin Hood, but Robin immediately shatters her illusions, telling her the legend is a lie. He is a bad man who killed and robbed for himself, and he never prayed a day in his life. He also explicitly notes that he never loved Maid Marian, and she does not appear in this film. Later that night, the girl attempts to rob and kill Robin in his sleep. He easily defends himself, brutally stabbing her in the neck and head. He then drags her body up to his makeshift graveyard containing at least 13 graves and buries her under stones. Robin's former companion, Little John, played by Bill Skarsgård, soon tracks him down. Little John was originally recruited by Robin as a child soldier, making him violently psychotic with a childlike morality. A murder baby who bought into the romanticized Kool-Aid mythos of the Robin Hood legend. Because of this, Little John and his family are the only characters in the entire film who ever wear green. John had been living under the alias Edward, having stolen a farmer's identity, land, and wife, Margaret, with whom he had a daughter, Little Margaret. However, the original farmer's family returned, reclaimed the land, and murdered Margaret. John asked Robin to help him massacre the family in revenge in a mighty battle. Robin, subconsciously craving death, treats it as a suicide mission and agrees. On the way, John savagely beats a man to death with a staff over a loaf of bread, and Robin also murders a man over just a piece of bread. The two men tear into the village in grim, gory, muddy battle. Robin mercilessly slaughters men, women, and children. Little John even stabbing a pregnant woman in the stomach. During the chaos, Robin spots a young boy fleeing and shoots an arrow through the back of his head and through his eye. Robin then kills 2 men outside a burning house, splitting one man's hand down the middle and shoving a burning torch into the mouth. Robin fights the family's grandfather, who brutally batters Robin with a mace, breaking his leg and ribs. Robin is ready to die and accepts his fate, but Little John gets the grandfather in the back of the head, saving Robin and little Margaret from the burning house. Robin screams and thrashes in agony and anger because he actively wanted to die. Little John takes the dying Robin to a nearby island priory before leaving. The facility is run by Sister Bridget, Jodie Comer, a woman with healing powers and a tragic past, who treats Robin using bloodletting. Robin adopts the alias Randolph with the initial intention of healing and returning to his violent life. However, the film's tone shifts to a slow, meditative character study. During his recovery, Robin befriends a dying leper, Murray Bartlett, whose face is entirely obscured by bandages. The leper teaches Robin how to care for pears, apples, and elderberry trees. Whenever Robin successfully remembers and repeats their names, the leper warmly replies, "Wonderful." Robin also begins to appreciate nature and shares philosophical moments with Sister Bridget, who teaches him about atoms and entropy, explaining that chaos is a natural part of existence, and it's a miracle humans ever formed languages. Robin begins secretly following Bridget. He follows her to a cave lit by candles and burning sage, watching her from behind as she prays and masturbates, likely thinking of her deceased husband. This is the exact same cave where Robin later finds little Margaret after she suffers a PTSD episode, cuts another child, and flees as the storm approaches. Following her father's death, Robin takes on a paternal role for the orphan little Margaret, teaching her to string a bow and trap rabbits. The piece is interrupted when Godwin, Noah Jupe, the young survivor of a village massacre who survived Robin's arrow but lost his eye, arrives under the alias Arthur. Robin becomes suspicious after noticing how Godwin looks at little Margaret and questions him in the forest. Realizing the boy intends to kill little Margaret for revenge, Robin rows Godwin across the water to a beach on the mainland. They sit on the beach and Robin asks for his real name, having a heart-to-heart reminiscent of a weary gunslinger from the Twilight Zone. Robin explains that the cycle of revenge never ends. He tells Godwin he has killed countless people and their families, and he orders the boy to go home. Just go home to your mother and your sisters. Live your life and break the cycle of blood debt. As the leper nears death, he asks to see Robin and reveals his true identity. He is Guy of Gisborne, Robin's old enemy. Because of his failing memory and guilt of the countless atrocities, Robin's recollection is sketchy. He first claims Guy of Gisborne didn't exist, and then he says he killed him. However, Guy reminds him that Robin actually spared his life, telling him in another life we would be drinking buddies, and he only cut off his ear. Forgiving him, Guy grabs Robin and says, "I guess this is another life." Guy begs Robin never to reveal his true identity to Sister Bridget, revealing that Robin is the very man who burned her husband and children alive in their home years ago. Seeking exoneration, Robin disobeys Guy's dying wish. Upon returning to the island, he finds Bridget staring forlornly out at the ocean toward the mainland. She said she didn't think he would return. Robin confesses his true identity and his crimes, telling her she should know that. Though devastated and sickened, Bridget later tells Robin that if it weren't for his horrific action, she would never have founded the Priory on hallowed ground and helped so many people, suggesting his sins were part of a universal balance. In the final scene, Bridget prepares Robin for another bloodletting session in his bed. Robin asks her to leave the wound open so he can bleed out and die, and she silently complies, allowing his blood to drain into a bowl. As he is dying, little Margaret walks into the room. To comfort her, Robin lies and tells her the legendary version of his story, that he and her father stole from the bad people to give to the poor, and assures her that her father loved her. He confirms her father's real name was Little John, but warns her that she must keep it a secret because many people wanted to hurt him. Robin gives her the bow he made for her and tells her to aim it out the window. He explains that releasing the bow means not holding on to something anymore. Robin times his peaceful, painless death perfectly, with the exact moment she releases the arrow into the air. In my non-spoiler review, I gave this film a 4 out of 5, and I stand by that rating, which I will go into more detail in this video. So check out the chapters in the description if you just want to get into what didn't work sooner rather than later. So, who is The Death of Robin Hood for? If you love raw, introspective films that challenge legends instead of celebrating them, if you're okay with a movie that's more about guilt than glory, more about lies than heroics, then this is your kind of story. It's slow, brutal, and haunting take on Robin Hood, one that asks what happens when the myth outlives the man. But if you're looking for swashbuckling adventure, clear-cut heroes, or fast-paced escapes, this isn't it. This is a film for thinkers, not thrill seekers. A 4 out of 5 that sticks with you because it makes you stick with it. I said at the beginning, people like stories, and Robin Hood might be one of the purest examples how a story refuses to sit still. The legend of Robin Hood works like a living canon, a palimpsest, where each generation scrapes away some of the old ink and writes in a hero that matches its own fears, hopes, and politics. We don't treat them as a historical figure we're trying to archive. We treat them like a narrative clay that reshapes over and over to fit the moment. Storytelling in that sense becomes a survival mechanism. It's an art, and it isn't changed to historical truth, but is limited only by how far we are willing to push our own myth-making. From campfire stories and medieval ballads to technicolor adventure, from gritty epics to this 2026 film, the figure of Robin Hood has gone through what I'd call mythic erosion. He starts as a muddy, dangerous yeoman in the forest, becomes a romantic noble and patriotic hero, and finally arrives here, a broken, deconstructed outlaw whose legend is heavier than his sword. The key idea I want to explore in this spoiler review is simple. We don't actually go looking for historical Robin Hood. We go looking for the version of the story that helps us endure our own era. And the death of Robin Hood is very clearly about what that kind of era it thinks we're living in. To really feel what Michael Sarnoski is doing in The Death of Robin Hood, you have to go back to the muddy roots of the legend. There's a wonderful quote from a medieval historian that I love. Modern audiences imagine knights in shining armor, but most battles were just peasants beating each other to death with shovels in the mud. That's the world of Robin Hood originally belongs to. Less hero on a tapestry, more outlaw in a ditch. Early written references don't give us a revolutionary. They give us a waylayer. Andrew of Wyntoun in the 14th century places Robin of Hood in Barnesdale, not Nottingham, and calls him a waithman, literally a man who lays in wait. That's a forest predator, not a folk saint. In the ballad, A Jest of Robin Hood from 1491, he's described as a yeoman, a yeoman. That's middle class, above the peasant, below the knight. It's a social position with mobility but not nobility. In the original ballad of his death, the Kirklees Priory story, is as far from heroic blaze of glory as you can get. Robin goes to a prioress for medicinal bloodletting and is betrayed. In one version, Red Roger of Doncaster takes advantage of Robin's weakened state to stab him. Robin manages to kill Roger, but he dies there, drained and betrayed, not triumphant. So that's the baseline, a waylayer, a yeoman, a man whose story ends not in victory, but in a room bleeding out, betrayed by people he thought he could trust. Keep that in your pocket because Sarnoski absolutely does. Jump forward a few centuries and Robin Hood has turned into a very different creature on screen. Two big cinematic versions really set the heroic template. Errol Flynn in 1938 and Russell Crowe in Ridley Scott's 2010 film. Errol Flynn gives us the archetypical swashbuckling, green tights, technicolor forest, bright pageantry. His mission is straightforward. Defend King Richard, humiliate Prince John, making justice fun to fight. It's light, theatrical, designed to feel like a golden world where violence is choreographed, romantic, and safe. Ridley Scott and Russell Crowe go the other way. Visually, they bring in mud, heavy armor, and a gladiator aesthetic. The 2010 film was sold as the story that has not been told before, an epic origin of how this warrior became the legend. It blends history to create a modern blockbuster about nation building and proto-revolution. Robin becomes part of a serious, storm-tossed political canvas. Both of these films, in very different ways, are about building Robin up, either as an icon or an adventurer or a mythic pillar in the foundation of England. They climb, they ascend, they turn this muddy waylayer into somebody you'd put on a poster. The death of Robin Hood comes in and very consciously punctures that climb. And then there's the version a lot of us grew up with, Disney's 1973 animated Robin Hood. For many people, that's the default hero. Charming fox, witty robber, benevolent trickster, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Michael Sarnoski has talked about how much he loves that film's acting trope concept. The idea that these animal characters play different roles across multiple stories. It's cute, theatrical, very meta. But it also highlights something important, the way we recycle story. Disney literally reuses animation from the Jungle Book to save money, retracing old movements and dropping them into a new context. The bones of one story become the skeleton of another. The Robin Hood canon does the same thing. We keep reusing the bones of the outlaw myth to tell different truths. Sometimes they're fun truths, sometimes romantic, sometimes nationalist. So let's talk about how Michael Sarnoski just broke the living canon. In 2026, Sarnoski takes that dancing fox and basically says, okay, what if we strip away every ounce of that benevolence? Instead of an anthropomorphic hero leading forest animals in song, we get a human being whose life of violence has left nothing cute, nothing safe, and not much noble. From the jump, Sarnoski obliterates the romantic storybook pageantry. Hugh Jackman's Robin, operating under the alias Randolph, is flatly not a folk hero. He is a self-admitted, murderous brigand. We meet him in a pitless, foggy, and rugged rocky moors by a fire, encountering a young drifter girl. There's a brief sense that he might be a gruff protector, until she turns on him and tries to rob him. His response is brutally decisive. He stabs her right in the throat. There's no heroic music, no slow-motion heroics, just raw, ugly naturalism as he drags her body to a makeshift graveyard, marking 13 other victims. Think about that. We aren't starting with a misunderstood rogue. We're starting with a monster who used heroic branding. In his own words, the ballads, the Prince of Thieves image, and the grand speeches were just a crafted lie manufactured by the very good publicists in the form of a wandering minstrel and evolving folk ballads. He didn't love Marion. He never prayed a day in his life. The myth was nothing but a marketing campaign to wrap righteousness around bloodshed. And look at how Sarnoski reflects this shift visually through what I call aspect ratio as theology. The first act is shot in a wide, traditional epic ratio, capturing the horizontal sprawl of battlefields, mud, and blood. It keeps us earthbound, trapped in the dirt of 13th century banditry. But the second, his battered body arrives at Sister Bridget's Island Priory. The frame opens up vertically. It becomes taller, boxier. Suddenly there is room for sky, room for faces. The camera itself transitions from an epic combat into a tight chamber drama of confession. It subtly forces us to look upward, shifting our gaze from open violence to enclosed morality. Let's talk about the green costume. The cinematography here is relentlessly grim, trading romantic colors for an earthy canvas of mud, stone, and sackcloth. Except for one massive visual anomaly. Little John, played brilliantly by Bill Skarsgård, and his stolen family are the only characters in the entire film who wear the classic Robin Hood green. Why on earth is a secondary character wearing the iconic green while Robin looks like a dusty, decayed gunslinger? Because the green costume isn't a fun Easter egg. It's the legend made visible, and it unlocks the entire philosophy of the film. Sarnoski revealed in interviews that Robin recruited Little John as a child soldier back in the day. His moral development was completely stunted. Sarnoski literally calls him a murder baby, a violently psychotic monster who has the innocence of a child, who simply hasn't learned morality yet. He is the only person who fully drank the romanticized Kool-Aid of the Robin Hood myth. He genuinely believes the fairy tale of their grand adventures, so he dresses his family into legendary colors. And here's the terrifying irony. The only man still wearing the heroic fairy tale costume is the most unhinged psychopath in the movie. He can savagely beat a stranger to death with a staff just for a loaf of bread, and then turn around and pray like a sweet, innocent child. Sarnoski is showing us that romanticizing a life of violence doesn't create gallant heroes. It creates dangerous fanatics who don't even realize they are the bad guys. John is the fairy tale walking around in costume, completely oblivious to the trail of blood he leaves behind, while Robin has long since woken up to the nightmare. When Robin is forced to stop fighting and simply exist, the aspect ratio opens up, the pacing slows down, and he encounters two unlikely teachers who anchor the philosophical heart of the movie. First, Sister Bridget, played with breathtaking intelligence by Jodie Comer, introduces him to a 13th century version of entropy. She explains that chaos isn't an anomaly, it's a fundamental natural part of our existence. Because the universe is inherently chaotic, she argues, it is an absolute miracle that human beings ever managed to form languages and shared meanings to connect with one another. Ignore the fact that they wouldn't fully grasp the atoms back then. The thematic point hits perfectly. If Bridget teaches Robin how to understand the chaos, the leper teaches him how to live in it. In a brilliant twist for Canon fans, this leper is eventually revealed to be Guy of Gisborne, Robin's legendary archenemy. Robin's mind is failing him from trauma and guilt. He barely remembers cutting off Guy's ears back in the day. But Gisborne doesn't seek revenge. Instead, he offers Robin a quiet, grounding grace. He teaches him the husbandry of memory by showing him how to care for the orchard trees, the pear, the apple, and the elderberry. Every time Robin successfully repeats them, the leper simply listens and warmly replies, "Wonderful." I found it incredibly touching. A man who spent his entire life pulling back a bowstring, trying to force the chaotic world into submission through bloodshed, finally learns to stop fighting. The entropy. He accepts the chaos, but he learns to find meaning and grace in small miracles within it. A shared word, the name of an apple tree, and the act of caring for a traumatized little girl. We've seen this type of weary killer before, like William Mooney in Unforgiven. Jackman is an aging gunslinger crushed by his past, stalked by young upstarts, especially Godwin, the young survivor of a village massacre who lost his eye to Robin's arrow. But Sarnoski refuses to give us the glorious, cathartic final shootout. Instead, this movie pulls a page right out of the classic Twilight Zone episode, Mr. Denton on Doomsday, where a haunted gunslinger finds a way to break free from his violent loop. Robin finds his exit by refusing to fight. He rows Godwin across the water to a mainland beach. They sit on the sand and Robin has a true heart-to-heart about guilt and conscience. He tells Godwin, if you killed a little girl, you just turn yourself into the next murderer in a line that never ends. He tells the boy to go home to his mother and sisters, to live his life and be free of this bloody mess. By putting down his bow, Robin performs his first truly heroic act. He breaks the generational cycle of violence. But don't think that this is an easy Hollywood absolution arc. Sarnoski completely redefines redemption here. Before the leper dies, he begs Robin never to tell Sister Bridget the truth. Why? Because Robin is the exact man who burned Bridget's husband and children alive in their homes years ago. Her entire life of holy healing was born directly from the ashes of his monstrous carnage. Unable to live with the weight of it, Robin disobeys the dying wish. He approaches Bridget by the ocean and confesses his true identity. And what makes this choice so brilliant is her reaction. She is sickened, of course, and she despises him, but she does not offer him forgiveness. Instead, she does something infinitely more profound. She recontextualizes his sins. She tells him that if it weren't for his horrific violence, she would never have founded this priory on hallowed ground to heal so many lost souls. She survives her grief by turning this monstrous action into a catalyst for larger cosmic balance. And this leads directly into their final intimate scene together. When Bridget prepares Robin for his usual bloodletting treatment, Robin asks her to leave the wound open so he can finally bleed out and die. She silently complies, just watching us, the blood drains into the bowl. Now, quick aside, bloodletting was a 13th century go-to treatment for just about everything. Go figure. She isn't murdering him out of pure vengeance. She is granting them both a dark, complicated closure by allowing him the death he has been craving. Robin doesn't die a hero cleansed of his sins. He dies a broken man whose violence was transformed into grace by the very woman he broke. This leads us to the ultimate thesis of the film and how it talks directly to the medieval canon. In some ancient legends, Robin shoots a final arrow to mark his burial spot. In 1976, Robin and Marion, Sean Connery's aging Robin is poisoned by Marion to preserve his heroic memory before sickness drags him down. Sarnoski beautifully echoes both of these while completely twisting them. As Robin is peacefully bleeding out by his own choice, an orphan little Margaret walks into the room. Robin knows her father, little John, was a psychotic monster. He knows the truth is ugly and brutal, but instead of burdening the traumatized child with the reality of their violent loop, Robin performs his ultimate act of heroism. He gives her the lie. He gives her the legend. He tells her the classic tale that he and her father stole from the bad people to give to the poor. He promises her that her father loved her, and then he hands her a bow and tells her to aim it out the window, and tells her that releasing the arrow means not holding on to the past anymore. It's a beautiful inversion. She's not clinging to the myth. She's sending it out into the world as something that belongs to her now, not to him. Robin Hood goes to his grave knowing the truth of his monstrous life, but his final act is to give little Margaret the very thing the world actually needs: a story. Sarnoski presents a 13th century world so merciless and barbaric that people literally need legends to survive. We constantly remake and retell these stories because new generations need to see themselves in the narratives to make sense of the chaos. The Prince of Thieves might be a manufactured persona built on blood, but those stories become emotional infrastructure that carry us through the dark. The whole look of the film worked for me. The cinematography and the visual design create a world that feels more like a 13th century England than the most Robin Hood adaptations ever dare to. There's a distinctive, almost gothic aesthetic that avoids the romantic storybook look and instead leans into something colder, rougher, and older. Credit here goes to Michael Sarnoski and cinematographer Pat Scola. Sarnoski's is the most important name in the production. Before Robin Hood, Sarnoski directed Pig, A Quiet Place, Day One, and what makes him interesting is that he consistently uses genre stories to explore grief, identity, memory, and regret. Pig looked like a revenge movie, but it wasn't. A Quiet Place, Day One, looked like an alien invasion movie, but was really about mortality. The Death of Robin Hood looks like a medieval adventure, but is actually about myth, guilt, and legacy. That's very much his storytelling DNA. The expansive, bleak landscapes and the harsh Irish countryside don't just look pretty. They mirror the emotional states of the characters. You feel the isolation, the fatigue, the sense that the legend has been worn down by the land and history itself. The production design and costumes deepen the old world vibe. Everything looks lived in, used, and fraying at the edges rather than fresh off a costume rack. Pat Scola's previous credits, Pat Scola, the cinematographer, his previous credits include Pig, Sing Sing, and A Quiet Place Day One. Pat Scola has become Sarnoski's primary visual collaborator for Robin Hood. They shot on 35mm film, giving the movie a rough, textured appearance that feels more historical and less digitally polished. The film doesn't look like a fantasy. It looks like history remembered through folklore. The editing was left up to the capable hands of Andrew Monshine. Monshine is a veteran editor whose resume stretches back decades. Some of his major credits include The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, The Devil Wears Prada, and many other films over the decades. His strength is character-driven pacing rather than rapid-fire cutting, and that fits perfectly with Robin Hood's contemplative structure. I also appreciated Jim Geddes' musical score. There's an earth-real folk quality to the music that fits the film's melancholic tone and wide, desolate visuals. It doesn't sound like a big, triumphant adventure score. It sounds like something that could have drifted in from before the Renaissance, before Chaucer, from the hazy space where rumors and ballads were just starting to form. This is one of the most interesting hires for the film. Geddes comes primarily from the British folk music scene rather than the blockbuster film scoring. His music often combines traditional English folk influence, acoustic instrumentation, dark atmosphere textures, and minimalist arrangements. And that approach makes perfect sense for a Robin Hood story focused on a folklore rather than the adventure. The music helps place this story in that liminal zone between history and myth. It supports the quieter, meditative second half just as effectively as it underlies the shock and violence of the opening. What really sold this film for me were the performances. I think the cast earns every minute the film spends developing these characters. Hugh Jackman is Hugh Jackman. You know him, Wolverine, The Greatest Showman, and Les Mis. But lately he's been gravitating toward older, morally complicated characters, and this feels like a natural extension of where his career is now. His Robin is lived in, not performative. You can see the weight of a lifetime in his posture and hear it in the way he fights his own legend. Other than Logan, this may be his best work, and I mean that as someone who thinks Logan is one of the best comic book movies ever made. Jodie Comer, Killing Eve, The Bike Riders, The Last Duel, brings grace, intelligence, and a much-needed soft touch to a harsh world. She quietly becomes the emotional center of the film without ever feeling sentimental. If Jackman is the wounded animal, she's the person who decides whether to help it or put it down. Bill Skarsgård is best known to genre fans as Pennywise from It, but his career has increasingly moved toward unusual and transformative character work. The son of actor Stellan Skarsgård and brother of actors Alexander Skarsgård, Bill has built his own identity through physically distinctive performances, especially Nosferatu, where he plays Orlok. In Robin Hood, he disappears into a very different role than audiences may expect. Murray Bartlett is an Australian actor who broke out on the hit series The White Lotus and is also known for his work in The Last of Us. His working relationship with co-star Hugh Jackman actually goes back many years. The two toured Australia together for 4 months, playing partners on stage in a musical. Bartlett has stated that working with young Jackman taught him how to make everyone on set feel seen, serving as a benchmark for the kind of actor and person he wanted to become. And then there's Faith Delaney. You probably don't know her name yet. She's a young Irish performer who plays Little Margaret. She has a much smaller role than the leads, but I'll tell you right now, she's emotionally anchors Jackman's character in the story. Keep an eye on her name. Walking into the film's first act was a jolt, in a good way. The violence is vivid, visceral, and generally unsettling. It feels physical and ugly rather than stylized or fun. And that very quickly strips away the romanticism that a lot of 20th and 21st century Robin Hood films have layered into the myth. Instead of heroic action beats, you get the sense of what that kind of life would really do to a human body. For me, that set the tone beautifully. It tells you up front that it's not a movie interested in glorifying the outlaw fantasy. It's going to sit with the cost. On the other hand, I know some people are going to struggle with the pacing and the structure, especially in the second half. Personally, I'm not in the camp that found the second half boring. The title of the film told me exactly what kind of story I was walking into, and I understood why the tone shifts. It actually reminded me a bit of The Last Samurai in the way it moves from large-scale violence into something more introspective and elegiac. That said, I completely get why viewers who don't know the Robin Hood canon or who are coming in expecting a more conventional adventure movie might bounce off. The slow, meditative pacing can feel like a nasty, unpleasant grind if you're waiting for the next action sequence or the film to turn into a romance. Even for me, I'll admit that the loss of momentum in the second half becomes a bit tedious in spots. There are stretches that come in waves. You feel your attention starting to drift. Then the film pulls you back in. I was still engaged overall, but it's not a tight, propulsive narrative. If you're looking for action, some humor, or a sweeping love story like a certain earlier versions, you'll probably be disappointed. This film is not built to scratch that itch. The tonal whiplash is real. The abrupt transition from a hyper-violent, action-heavy opening to a quiet, dialogue-sparse character study is going to shock anyone who isn't prepared for it. Consider this your warning. Where the marketing might not give you one, this is the deathbed introspection movie, wearing an outlaw's costume, not a romp through Sherwood. Look, I have to be honest about this one. My wife leaned over about 20 minutes in and whispered, "I have no idea what these people are saying." She wasn't wrong. It's not the accents themselves exactly. It's that Sarnoski has clearly gone for the full naturalistic immersion. These characters mumble, they talk under their breath, the wind whips around them, the fire crackles, and sometimes the dialogue just gets swallowed up by the environment. It feels authentic as hell. This world is cold and damp and miserable, and people wouldn't project like they are on stage. But authentic doesn't always mean audible. I caught most of it. She caught maybe 60%, and if you're someone who struggles with British or Irish accents in films, this one's going to test you. My practical advice: if your theater offers those closed caption devices for the hearing impaired, grab one. No shame in it. I've done it before and it saved a movie for me. Or cross your fingers for a streaming release with subtitles, because this one is one of those rare films that actually benefits from them. Back in 2010, my research into the Robin Hood canon led me deep enough that I was looking at hairstyles of the era, actually a bit earlier than the time frame this film is evoking. During King John's time, everyday hairstyles tended to be shorter, while nobility often wore their hair longer. In this film, Robin doesn't read as noble to me. He reads as an outlaw who has long since abandoned society's rules, including grooming. When I posted my non-spoiler review a few days after release, The Death of Robin Hood was sitting at 68% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 59% audience score. Metacritic was at 60 out of 100 and IMDb users had at 62 out of 10. Fast forward to today, and honestly not much has changed. Rotten Tomatoes has slipped just a single point to 67%, while the audience score has eased down to 57%. Metacritic remains at 60, and IMDb is still holding steady at 6.2. So to me, that's actually pretty telling. It suggests the early reaction wasn't simply opening weekend excitement or disappointment. The consensus has remained remarkably stable. Critics still respect the film's ambition, performances, and craftsmanship, while audiences continue to be divided by its deliberate pacing and its refusal to deliver the Robin Hood adventure many expected. Financially, the movie has also grown, although at a modest pace that many expected for an A24 character drama. When I recorded my non-spoiler review, it had opened to just under $3 million domestically and just over $2.9 million worldwide, against a reported $20 million production budget. As of today, the domestic total has climbed to about $4.8 million, while the worldwide total now sits at just $5.1 million. And at this point, that's certainly not enough to recover its production budget through theatrical release alone. But this was never positioned as a mainstream blockbuster. This was a slow-burning, auteur-driven reinterpretation of Robin Hood, and films like this often have a much longer life on premium, video on demand, and streaming than in theaters. And what I find interesting is that the audience scores and the box office both tell the same story. This wasn't rejected because it was poorly made. It was rejected, or at least approached cautiously, because it challenged people's expectation of what a Robin Hood movie should be. And after spending more time with it for the spoiler review, I think that's exactly what Michael Sarnoski intended. When the credits starts, you have officially seen the whole movie. So pick up your stuff, don't make a mess, and leave. The crew needs to clean up. So where does that leave us? You know the score I gave the film, a solid 4.5 out of 5. The Death of Robin Hood operates as a kind of brutal elegiac closure to the living canon. It doesn't settle the historical question or of whether Robin Hood existed. It doesn't pretend to be a definitive take. What it does is confront us with the idea that the man behind the myth would probably be someone we'd find deeply unsettling, maybe unforgivable. At the same time, the film argues that we still need the story. We need the legend of the hero, the prince of thieves, the outlaw who fights for the poor, even if the reality was messier, uglier, more violent than we want to admit. These stories mean so much to people that they become emotional infrastructure. They carry us through the hard times. They give us language for injustice and resistance. This film asks what happens when that infrastructure comes face to face with a man who built it upon blood. And its answer, at least for this version of Robin Hood, is that peace only comes when he stops believing his own myth and starts telling the truth, while still, paradoxically, gifting at least one child the kinder life she needs to carry on. People like stories, and sometimes the hardest thing is admitting that the stories that keep us alive were never fully true, while still understanding why we simply can't throw them away. Thank you for staying with me on this journey through time, myth, and legend. I want to know what you think about the film, The Legend of Robin Hood in general, this analysis, and where you think the future of cinema is heading. Check out the channel's shirt designs and let me know if there's any design you're thinking would be great for this channel. Like and subscribe if you got something out of the analysis and review. I will see you next time on A Constantly Racing Mind. Take care.